What's coming next will absolutely shatter you. A moment so raw, so unexpectedly powerful that it stopped America's most famous talk show dead in its tracks. Johnny Carson, the man who made millions laugh for 3 decades, about to do something he'd never done before. A stranger in the audience, a secret that changed everything, and 7 words that would echo through television history forever. But before we dive into this incredible story, I see messages all the time in the comments section that some of you didn't realize you didn't subscribe. So if you could do me a favor and double check if you're a subscriber to this channel, that would be tremendously appreciated. It's simple, it's free, and it's something that anybody who watches this show frequently can do to help us keep everything going and maintain the trajectory we're on. So please double check if you've subscribed. Thank you so much, because in a strange way, you're part of our history. You're on this journey with us, and I appreciate you for that. Now let me tell you something that nobody expected would happen on March 22nd, the night everything changed. March 22nd, 1984. Studio One, NBC Burbank. The Tonight Show is in full swing. Johnny Carson's monologue has the audience roaring. Political jokes landing perfectly. The energy is electric. 400 people packed into that studio, millions more watching from living rooms across America. But Johnny keeps glancing at someone in the 3rd row. An older man, maybe 70, wearing a suit that's seen better days, clean but worn. The kind of suit a man wears when it's the only one he owns. He's not laughing at the jokes, not smiling, just sitting there completely still, staring at Johnny with an intensity that doesn't belong in a comedy show. Johnny's been doing this for 22 years. He knows his audience. He knows the difference between someone enjoying themselves and someone carrying something heavy. This man is carrying something impossibly heavy. The monologue ends. Commercial break. Johnny walks backstage, but that man's face stays in his mind. Who is he? Johnny asks his stage manager. No idea, just a regular ticket holder. But there's nothing regular about the way that man is looking at him. What Johnny doesn't know yet, what nobody in that studio knows, is that this stranger drove 1,100 miles to be here, slept in his car for 2 nights, spent his last $47 on a scalp ticket, all to sit in that audience, all to deliver a message that's been burning inside him for 41 years. A message about a debt that can never be repaid. The interview begins. First guest of the night is Bob Newhart. Brilliant comedian, old friend of Johnny's. The conversation is easy, comfortable. Stories about failed pilots, network executives who don't understand comedy, the usual Hollywood war stories. The audience loves it, but Johnny keeps looking at that man in the 3rd row. And then something strange happens. During a particularly funny moment, Bob doing an impression of a confused television executive, the entire audience erupts in laughter. Everyone except that one man. He's not watching Bob Newhart. He's staring directly at Johnny, and his eyes are filling with tears. Johnny loses his train of thought mid-sentence. I'm sorry, Bob. What were you saying? Bob Newhart pauses, confused. Johnny Carson never loses focus, but Johnny's attention is somewhere else entirely. The commercial break can't come fast enough. The moment the cameras cut, Johnny stands up. He doesn't head backstage. He walks directly into the audience, straight toward the 3rd row, while producers frantically gesture at him to come back. Sir, Johnny says, standing in front of the older man. Are you all right? The man stands slowly. His hands are shaking. He's about the same height as Johnny, maybe an inch shorter. His face is weathered, lined with decades of hard work and harder memories. Mr. Carson, the man says, his voice cracking. My name is Robert Chin. I've been trying to reach you for 3 years. Johnny's face changes. Something in that name, that voice, triggers a memory he can't quite place. I don't understand. November 1943, Robert says. Naval Station, San Diego. You were 18 years old. And just like that, Johnny Carson's entire world stops. His face goes pale. His hands begin to tremble. Ed McMahon, watching from the stage, has never seen Johnny look like this. How do you, Johnny can barely form words. How do you know about that? Robert reaches into his jacket pocket with shaking hands. He pulls out a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age, protected in a plastic sleeve. Because you saved my father's life that day. And he made me promise to find you and tell you what happened after. What nobody expected. The studio is completely silent now. Producers are frozen. Cameras are still rolling. This is a commercial break, but someone smart in the control room keeps them running. They know they're witnessing something unprecedented. Johnny takes the paper with trembling hands. It's a military telegram. He unfolds it carefully. Western Union, November 14, 1943. To Mrs. Chen, 1247 Harbor View, San Francisco. Your husband, PVT James Chen, recovered safely. Stop rescued by naval recruit Carson J. Stop full recovery expected. Stop. Johnny's legs nearly give out. He sits down right there in the audience aisle, still holding that telegram. I never knew his name, Johnny whispers. I never knew if he made it. But what happened next, what Robert is about to reveal, will destroy everyone in that studio. Stay with me. You need to hear what this stranger drove 1,100 miles to tell Johnny Carson. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from, because what happens next changed everything. The story behind the telegram, November 1943, Naval Station, San Diego. Johnny Carson is 18 years old, fresh recruit, skinny Nebraska kid who'd enlisted after Pearl Harbor. He's been in the Navy exactly 7 weeks, still doesn't know port from starboard half the time, still gets seasick on calm days. He's never told this story, not once, not to his wives, not to his children, not to his closest friends in 40 years of Hollywood. But Robert Chen knows every detail because his father told him, made him memorize it, made him promise to find Johnny Carson and tell him what his actions meant. It was a training exercise, small boats in San Diego Harbor, routine drill, supposed to be simple, safe, boring. Private James Chen was in Johnny's boat, 23 years old, Chinese immigrant who'd volunteered to fight for America, despite facing discrimination in every city he'd ever lived in, desperate to prove he belonged, desperate to show he was just as American as anyone else. The boat capsized. Freak accident. A wave hit wrong. The boat flipped. 7 men in the water. Cold November ocean. 6 of them could swim. James Chen couldn't. My father lied on his enlistment papers, Robert says, tears streaming down his face. Said he could swim. He'd never even seen the ocean before arriving in California. He was terrified of water, but he wanted to serve so badly he lied. Johnny is crying now, right there in the audience. The king of late night, breaking down while 400 strangers watch. I saw him go under, Johnny says, his voice barely audible. Everyone else was swimming to the rescue boat, but I saw him sink, saw the panic in his eyes. Robert nods. You dove after him, 3 times. The drill instructor was screaming at you to save yourself, but you kept diving, and the 3rd time you found him. I couldn't let him drown. He was somebody's son. He was my father, Robert says, and because you saved him that day, I exist. My sister exists. My children exist. 16 people in my family owe their lives to what you did when you were 18 years old. The studio audience is sobbing. Ed McMahon is openly weeping. The camera operators are crying. This isn't television anymore. This is something sacred. But there's more. There's always more. The secret Johnny never knew. Robert reaches into his jacket again. This time he pulls out a photograph, black and white, faded but preserved with care. He hands it to Johnny. The photograph shows a man in his 50s standing in front of a small grocery store. The sign above reads Chen's Market, Oakland, California. The man is smiling, surrounded by family. A woman, 3 children, and at least a dozen other people. My father, Robert says, taken in 1968, 25 years after you saved him. Johnny stares at the photograph, unable to speak. After the war, my father moved to Oakland, opened that grocery store with money he saved from his military pay. He worked 7 days a week for 30 years, put all 3 of his children through college. My sister became a doctor. My brother became a teacher. I became an engineer. Robert's voice is shaking but strong. Every single day, my father watched The Tonight Show. Every single night at 11:30, he would sit in his chair and watch you, and he would say to us, "That's the man who gave me my life. That's the man who gave you your lives. Johnny can't stop crying. His shoulders are shaking. This is the most vulnerable America has ever seen him. We tried to find you, Robert continues, wrote letters to NBC. They never got through. Then in 1981, my father was diagnosed with cancer. He had 6 months, and he made me promise, swear on everything I loved, that I would find you and tell you what your actions meant. He wanted you to know that you didn't just save a drowning man that day. You saved a family. You saved a legacy. You saved everyone who came after. The silence in that studio is absolute. My father died in February 1982, Robert says, tears pouring down his face. I've been trying to reach you ever since. 3 years of letters that went unanswered, 3 years of phone calls that never got through. So I drove here, spent everything I had on a ticket, because I promised my father I would look you in the eye and say thank you. Robert Chen takes Johnny Carson's hand. Thank you for diving into that water when everyone else swam away. Thank you for saving a man you didn't know. Thank you for giving 16 people the gift of existence. Johnny Carson, the man who interviewed presidents, who made millions laugh, who defined American television for 3 decades, can't speak. He just holds Robert's hand and weeps. What Johnny did next shocked everyone. The commercial break is long over. Millions of Americans are watching this unfold live. NBC's switchboard is already melting down with calls. The control room has abandoned the script entirely. Bob Newhart is still on stage, tears streaming down his face, completely forgotten. This isn't The Tonight Show anymore. This is something else entirely. Johnny stands up slowly. He's still holding Robert's hand. He helps the older man to his feet. Come with me, Johnny says quietly. And then Johnny Carson does something he has never done in 22 years of hosting The Tonight Show. He walks Robert Chen onto the stage. The audience rises to their feet, not applauding, witnessing. This is history happening in real time. Johnny leads Robert to the guest chair, the chair where movie stars sit, where presidents sit, where legends tell their stories. Sit down, Johnny says gently. Robert sits, overwhelmed, confused. Mr. Carson, I didn't come here to be on television. I know, Johnny interrupts, his voice still thick with emotion. But America needs to hear this. They need to know what you just told me. Johnny turns to the camera. His eyes are red. His face is wet with tears. But his voice is clear. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to tell you something I've never told anyone. November 1943. I was 18 years old, and I pulled a man out of the ocean. I never knew his name, never knew if he survived. I've thought about him maybe a dozen times in 41 years. Just a moment. Just a kid doing what he thought was right. Johnny looks at Robert. But that moment, that one decision to dive instead of swim away, created 16 lives, built a family, gave children and grandchildren the chance to exist. The camera is tight on Johnny's face. How many moments like that do we have? How many times do we make a choice without knowing what it means, without knowing who it touches, without knowing what we're really creating? Johnny's voice cracks completely. Robert drove 1,100 miles to tell me that my life mattered in a way I never understood. That one moment when I was 18 years old, scared out of my mind in the Pacific Ocean, changed everything for people I never met. He turns to Robert. Tell America about your father. Tell them about James Chen. And Robert does. For the next 20 minutes, there are no jokes, no comedy bits, no celebrity banter, just Robert Chen telling the story of his father, the immigrant who lied to serve his country, the grocer who worked 7 days a week, the man who watched The Tonight Show every night and pointed at the screen and said, "That man gave you your life." The audience is silent, except for the sound of crying. Johnny sits next to Robert the entire time, not as a host, as a witness. As a man learning what his actions really meant. When Robert finishes, Johnny does something else unprecedented. He stands up, faces the camera, and speaks directly to everyone watching. The message that changed everything. I want to tell you something, Johnny says, his voice steady now, filled with something that might be purpose. We walk through our lives thinking our actions don't matter, thinking we're not important enough to make a difference, thinking that we're just ordinary people doing ordinary things. He gestures to Robert. But this man's father, James Chen, thought the same thing. an immigrant grocer in Oakland, California. Nobody famous, nobody powerful, just a man raising his family, running a small store, watching television at night. Johnny's eyes are bright with tears, but his voice is strong. And his son drove across the country to tell a stranger thank you, because one moment 41 years ago rippled forward and created a legacy. He looks directly into the camera. What moments are you creating right now? What decision are you making today that might change someone's entire life? What kindness are you showing that might echo through generations? The studio is absolutely silent. You don't have to save someone from drowning. You don't have to do something dramatic. You just have to pay attention. You just have to care. You just have to be willing to dive when everyone else swims away. Johnny walks back to Robert, extends his hand. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for keeping your promise to your father. Thank you for showing me that my life meant something I never understood. Robert stands, takes Johnny's hand, and then does something that makes the entire studio gasp. He salutes, a formal military salute. Sharp, precise, respectful. On behalf of James Chen, United States Army, and the 16 lives he created after you saved him, thank you, sir. Johnny Carson, 18 years old in his heart again, standing in that cold November ocean, salutes back. Two men. Decades of distance between that moment and this one, connected by a single act of courage that neither fully understood until right now. The audience erupts, not in applause, in something deeper, in recognition of something profound. This is what matters. This is what lasts. Not fame, not success, not the laughter, the moments when you choose to dive instead of swim away. What happened after the cameras stopped? The show ends 40 minutes late. NBC doesn't care. The switchboard has received over 50,000 calls. Stations across the country are already asking for permission to replay the segment. But Johnny doesn't know any of that yet. He's still sitting with Robert Chen in his dressing room. The door is closed. No cameras, no audience, just two men talking about a third man neither can ever meet again. I wish I could have known him, Johnny says quietly. Your father. I wish I could have thanked him. For what? Robert asks, confused. For teaching his son to keep promises, for raising a family that valued gratitude, for showing me that the smallest moments matter most. Robert pulls something else from his jacket, a small envelope. My father wrote this 3 days before he died, made me swear I wouldn't open it until I found you, until I could read it to you in person. Johnny's hands tremble as Robert opens the envelope and unfolds the letter. The handwriting is shaky, but readable. The words of a dying man who never forgot. Robert reads aloud, Dear Mr. Carson, you will never remember me. I am just one face in an ocean of faces you have seen in your remarkable life. But I remember you. I remember how you looked when you pulled me from the water. Terrified, exhausted, just a boy doing what he thought was right. You gave me 58 more years. You gave me a wife who loved me, 3 children who made me proud, grandchildren I never thought I would meet. You gave me Sunday dinners and 4th of July barbecues and Christmas mornings and ordinary Tuesdays that became extraordinary because I was alive to see them. I do not know if you ever thought about that day again, but I thought about it every single day of my life. Thank you for diving when everyone else swam away. Thank you for seeing me as someone worth saving. Thank you for giving my son the chance to keep this promise. You changed everything. I hope someone tells you that before you leave this world. I hope you know. With eternal gratitude, James Chen. The letter ends. Johnny Carson sits in silence for a long time. Then he does something he hasn't done since he was a boy in Nebraska. He prays. Not religious prayer necessarily, just gratitude spoken into the universe. Gratitude that he dove that day. Gratitude that James Chen survived. Gratitude that Robert kept his promise. Gratitude that his life meant something beyond the laughter. The legacy nobody expected. March 23, 1984. The morning after. Every major newspaper in America runs the story. Johnny Carson's secret war hero moment. The stranger who changed everything. When the Tonight Show stopped for gratitude. But Johnny doesn't read the articles. He's too busy making phone calls. He calls the Naval Records office. requests every document related to that November 1943 training accident. He wants to know who else was in that boat. He wants to find them. He wants to know if his small moment created other ripples he never saw. He calls Robert Chen, asks for his father's full story, offers to help establish a scholarship fund in James Chen's name for children of immigrants who want to serve their country. Your father shouldn't be forgotten, Johnny tells Robert. His story matters as much as mine. The scholarship fund launches 6 months later. The James Chen Memorial Scholarship, funded entirely by Johnny Carson, distributed through the Navy League to immigrant families who want to serve. In the first year, it sends 14 kids to college. Johnny never mentions it publicly, never promotes it, never makes it about himself. He just quietly ensures that James Chen's legacy continues beyond his own family. Because that's what you do when someone shows you that your life mattered. You honor them by making sure their life matters too. The photograph nobody saw until now. Robert Chen kept one more thing in his jacket that night. A photograph he didn't show Johnny on camera, didn't show him in the dressing room, saved for the very end, when they were alone in the NBC parking lot saying goodbye. "I need to show you something," Robert says. He hands Johnny a color photograph, recent, maybe a year old. It shows a family gathering, Thanksgiving, judging by the decorations. 16 people crowded around a long table, 3 generations, smiling, laughing, alive. In the center of the table, placed carefully among the dishes, is a photograph of James Chen in his Navy uniform. And next to that photograph, facing the camera, is a handwritten note on cardstock. The note reads, "Thank you, Johnny Carson, for giving us this table, for giving us this family, for diving when others swam away." The Chen family, November 1983. Johnny stares at that photograph for a long time, at the faces he made possible, at the lives that wouldn't exist if he'd made a different choice 41 years ago. "They know," Robert says softly. "All of them. Every birthday, every holiday, every graduation, we tell the story. We make sure my father's children and his children's children know that we exist because an 18-year-old kid from Nebraska decided one drowning man was worth saving." Johnny folds the photograph carefully, puts it in his pocket. "Can I keep this?" "It's yours," Robert says. "It was always yours." They shake hands one final time. Then Robert Chen drives away, promise fulfilled, debt acknowledged, gratitude delivered. Johnny Carson stands in that parking lot for 20 minutes after Robert leaves, just standing there under the California stars, holding a photograph of a family he created without knowing it. He would keep that photograph in his wallet for the rest of his life. The interview that changed Johnny forever. April 1984, 1 month after Robert Chen's appearance. Johnny Carson is interviewing a young comedian, rising star, lots of potential, full of ambition and hunger for fame. The kid is talking about his goals, network shows, movie deals, recognition, success measured in ratings and dollar signs. Johnny listens patiently. Then, during a commercial break, he leans over. "Can I tell you something off the record?" The young comedian nods eagerly. Advice from Johnny Carson is gold. The things you think matter, the fame, the money, the recognition, they're not real. They feel real, they look real, but they're not. You know what's real? The comedian waits. The moments you never see coming, the decisions you make without thinking, the times you choose to help instead of walk away. That's real. That's what lasts. Johnny tells him about James Chen, about Robert driving 1,100 miles, about a family that exists because of 3 seconds of decision in November 1943. "I spent 40 years thinking my career defined me," Johnny says quietly. "Turns out the most important thing I ever did happened when I was 18 and nobody was watching." The young comedian never forgets that conversation. Years later, when he's famous himself, he'll repeat Johnny's words in his own interviews. The ripple continues, because that's what real legacy does. It doesn't announce itself. It just keeps moving forward, touching lives in ways you never planned and usually never see. What the world never knew until now. Johnny Carson died January 23, 2005. His funeral was private, small, just family and closest friends. But someone unexpected attended, someone who flew in from Oakland, California, despite being told the service was restricted. Robert Chen, now 73 years old, still keeping promises, still honoring debts. Johnny's widow, Alexis, saw him standing at the back of the chapel. She didn't know who he was. Security almost removed him. But Johnny's son, Chris, recognized him from that 1984 Tonight Show episode. "Let him stay," Chris said. "My father would want him here." After the service, Robert approached the family, handed Alexis an envelope. Inside was a check for $47. "I don't understand," Alexis said. "When I drove to see your husband in 1984, I spent my last $47 on that ticket. It was everything I had. I told myself that someday, when I could, I would pay him back with interest. This represents $47 at 6% annual interest, compounded over 21 years. Alexis started crying. "He never would have wanted—" "I know," Robert interrupted gently. "That's exactly why I'm giving it to you, with a request. Use it however you see fit. But I hope some of it goes to the James Chen Memorial Scholarship. I hope my father's name and your husband's name stay connected. I hope people remember that both of them mattered." Alexis accepted the check, used it exactly as Robert requested. The scholarship still exists today, still sends children of immigrants to college, still carries both names, the James Chen Johnny Carson Legacy Scholarship. Because some debts can never be repaid, you can only honor them by passing them forward. The letter Johnny never sent. In 2008, when Johnny's estate was being settled, his children found something in his desk, a letter, handwritten, addressed but never mailed, to Robert Chen, Oakland, California. "Dear Robert, I've started this letter 100 times and never found the right words. How do you thank someone for showing you that your life mattered in ways you never understood? Since the night you walked onto my stage, I've thought about your father every single day, about the decision I made without thinking, about how close I came to swimming away with everyone else, about how different the world would be if I had 16 lives. That's what you told me. 16 people who exist because I dove instead of swam away. But here's what you might not know. You saved my life too. I'd spent 40 years in television, made millions laugh, won awards, built a career, but somewhere along the way, I started believing that none of it mattered, that entertainment is shallow, that laughter is temporary, that I'd spent my life on something frivolous while important people did important work. Then you showed me that one moment, one real moment of choosing to care mattered more than anything I ever did on television. You gave me permission to believe my life had purpose, not because I was famous, because I was human, because I chose to help when I could have chosen to save myself. I cannot repay that gift, but I can honor it by making sure I never forget what you taught me, that every moment matters, that every kindness ripples, that we're all creating legacies we'll never fully see. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for keeping your promise to your father. Thank you for driving 1,100 miles to tell a stranger something he desperately needed to hear. You changed everything. With gratitude I can never fully express. Johnny." The letter was dated March 30th, 8 days after Robert's appearance. Johnny's children had it framed, donated it to the Library of Congress, alongside the photograph of the Chen family, James Chen's final letter, and a copy of that Western Union telegram from November 9th. The exhibit is called "The Moment That Mattered: Johnny Carson's Unknown Legacy." Thousands of people visit it every year. Read the letters, see the photographs, learn the story. But more importantly, they ask themselves the question Johnny asked America that night. What moments are you creating right now that might ripple forward through time? The truth about legacy: here's what nobody tells you about legacy. It's not about what you accomplish. It's not about awards or recognition or how many people know your name. It's not even about the big dramatic moments that feel important while they're happening. Legacy is the 18-year-old kid diving into cold water without thinking. It's the choice to help when you could walk away. It's the small decision made in 3 seconds that creates 16 lives over 4 decades. Johnny Carson entertained America for 30 years. He made millions laugh. He interviewed presidents and movie stars and changed the landscape of television forever. But his real legacy, a grocer in Oakland watching The Tonight Show every night and pointing at the screen, a son keeping a deathbed promise, a family gathering around a Thanksgiving table that wouldn't exist if a scared Nebraska kid had chosen differently. That's what lasts. That's what matters. Not the applause, the ripples. Robert Chen died in 2019, age 88. His children, James's grandchildren, continue visiting the scholarship fund offices every year. They tell the story to new recipients. They make sure nobody forgets. Our grandfather was saved by Johnny Carson, they say, and Johnny Carson was saved by our father's gratitude. Neither man fully understood what they gave each other until it was almost too late. Don't wait. Tell people they matter. Thank people who changed you. Keep your promises. Dive when others swim away. The Chen family is now in its fourth generation, 47 people, all descendants of James Chen, all alive because Johnny Carson made one decision in November 1943, and every single one of them knows the story. Every single one of them carries it forward, because that's what real legacy does. It doesn't fade, it multiplies. If this story moved you, I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button. Not for me, for the same reason Robert Chen drove 1,100 miles. Because stories like this deserve to be remembered. Because ordinary moments create extraordinary legacies. Because someone needs to know that their small acts of kindness ripple forward in ways they'll never fully see. Drop a comment and tell me, where are you watching from? And has anyone ever thanked you for something you barely remember doing? Share your story. Let's create a thread of gratitude that honors what Johnny and James Chen taught us. The world needs more moments like this. More people willing to dive instead of swim away. More children keeping promises to parents who believed in gratitude. More recognition that we're all creating legacies every single day through choices that feel small but echo forever. Be the person who dives. Be the person who says thank you. Be the person who keeps promises. Because somewhere, someday, someone might drive 100 miles to tell you that your small moment changed everything. And you'll finally understand what your life really meant.